participant in the conference. All participants are muted, and they can unmute themselves.
Sorry about that, Brent. I had to reset the conference.
Just a reminder, not global stream.
I had to reset the room. I had a high-pitched squeal coming through, and I can't have that on the show. So the only way to get rid of it is to completely reset the room. I opened my mic and apologized for having to do it and told people listening to the recording when that was going on. Even more and going out over the broadcast stream. Completely aware of the damage that the neurological damage that a constant high-pitched squeal can cause. And the tension it can cause among participants. Morning, Shelley. I'm over in the other room.
I guess you haven't listened to shortwave radio.
No, I have listened to shortwave radio, and you can tune the oscillator of your receiver and pretty much get rid of any stone.
Not on these cheap radios we had. You just listen through the crap and tried to get through it. It doesn't longer be information that bad.
My early days of Patriot movement you're talking about. How you doing, guys? WWCR.
There was a high-pitched squeal.
Adam Rock.
There was a high-pitched squeal coming through the conference. I had to completely reset it, so we've got people filing back in.
I see. Okay. Well, sorry for the technical stuff, folks. It's the world we live in.
It happens.
Yeah.
Here we go. 5 seconds.
Goody.
Forward moving and focused on freedom. You're listening to the Global Voice Radio Network. This mirror stream is brought to you in part by MyMitoBoost.com for support of the mitochondria like never before. A body trying to function without adequate mitochondrial function is kind of running an engine without oil. It's not going to work very well. It's also brought to you by SnapPhat.com. That is SnapPhat.com. It's also brought to you by the Prife International Terahertz Frequency Wand through iTerraPlanet.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Break the chains that bind us together. We are strong.
Freedom seekers out there. Radio Ranch, Roger Sayles. It's the 20th for Tom D. It's the 20th of January. And here we go on the largest continuing group of free people congregating in the world. I think that pretty much nails us right there, Paul. That's a hell of an illustrious label. So we're joined by people that help us extend that reach to other people who'd like to find that freedom, and we always want to give them proper recognition and credit for doing so. Would you please, Mr. Beener, be so kind?
I would be happy to. Thank you, Raj. We have a full complement this morning. We do have RadioSoapbox.com. Thanks to Pastor, Paul English, our buddy over in England. We're on EurofolkRadio.com. Thanks to Pastor Eli James. We're on Global Voice Radio Network. Those links are radio.globalvoiceradio.net and rumble.globalvoiceradio.net. And we're also on additional platforms. We are on terrestrial radio on 106.9 WBOU FM Chicago, Go Live TV, and StreamLife.tube. StreamLife, an extremely popular platform. A couple of million people listen to that over a course of a month. Our website is thematrixdocs.com. And that's where you'll find the links to free conference calls. You can join us live on the show. We had a quick technical hiccup. It wasn't a big deal right before the show started. If you just recently joined because you called earlier and you got hung up on, I had to reset the conference. So sorry, but couldn't be helped.
Well, good morning. I guess the first thing to do is congratulate the University of Indiana on that great national championship game last night. It was a really good game, which many of those games are not. They're lopsided, but Miami did a great job. I don't think you guys got anything to hang your head about, and it was a really entertaining game. So congratulations to the new national champions over there in Bloomington, Indiana, and I'm sure any of your fans that are listening to our show are really happy this morning. Good for you. So what else? This is pretty interesting here, Paul. You know, Nancy, our gal Nancy that calls in occasionally when she's not working, I guess. Well, we know Nancy because we met her sister years ago back at the old Truth Frequency Radio thing, Suzanne. And Suzanne, I guess, turned Nancy onto what we do. Anyway, Suzanne ran off and got married on us to a dentist there in Virginia that takes silver fillings out of your mouth. His name's Dean. And nice folks. She has a son who has married and has 2 children with a Taiwanese gal. And so they were taking a trip probably to accompany the grandchildren and her son over to Taiwan to take and show the grandbabies to the other side of the grandparents. And I'd like to get Suzanne to come on and tell us about that. It's very rare we get real firsthand actualities in places of the world like that, and we get information much, and so maybe she'll come on and tell us about the trip. That would be interesting. But one of the things she did was send me some pictures, and she sent me pictures of her and Dean's boarding pass on their plane. And they're on the pass now. I have to admit, my eyes are so bad I could not read it. But on the boarding pass, you know what they got them listed as, Paul?
What?
American Samoans. And
what?
Yeah, they got them both listed on the boarding pass as American Samoans. And also on the boarding pass, they asked them for their mobile number and stuff. But I could read that, but I couldn't read it. But that's what she told me, so I'm going to believe her because she's a sweet, honest gal. And so anyway, I thought that's kind of interesting. So even a boarding pass now, if you filed your affidavit, will reflect what they consider to be your status. Now, is that interesting? You tell me it has permeated down to that level. It's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
I think it's more interesting that they had it wrong, but maybe they only have two options on the boarding pass.
You know who's doing AI's doing all that? It's AI that's wrong. So anyway, that's pretty interesting. Good, Suzanne. I hope that you're listening today, and I hope that you will come on and tell us about your trip. I'd love to hear some firsthand experience about Taiwan. And she says they're going, well, we're Chinese. We're not worried about them circling the island with warships and all that kind of stuff. So it would be very interesting to get that kind of perspective. And I hope Suzanne will come on one day and give it to us. She's a sweet gal. She was one of the original radio ranchettes, Paul. I mentioned it the other day, that years ago when Tom Schramm was hanging around here. Because of his traveling nature of his business, he was a chemical salesman. When we'd find female listeners and we'd find out where they lived, and then if they were in Tom's range, we'd send his partner. They'd go on the road together up there, and we wanted to make sure they got the okay to be a ranchette. So they'd take them out to dinner and stuff like that. We had two, Suzanne being one, and Lauren, who we've heard on the show several times. Lauren, old-timer, really sweet gals, both of them. And those were the two original radio ranchettes. So we've had to put that on the back burner because Tom's not hanging around to, qualify them anymore. Are you qualified? The old question. But anyway, that is who Suzanne is, and I'm going to see if I can, once they get over jet lag and all the rest of that stuff, because boy, is flying. Let me tell you what, flying west to east is where you get jet lag. On the other way going over, you're going with the time changes. See, so when you get there, you don't experience it. But boy, coming back the other way, man, that's where it'll take you 2 or 3 days if you're not setting. There's things you can do to alleviate that or minimize it, but that's where you get jet lag for. Pretty serious. I remember it. We flew back from Hawaii years ago. So anyway, there we go to start the show. I was totally distracted yesterday, so I don't know much of what has happened since. A little bit, not much, because of the football game and stuff. And I didn't sleep well the night before, so I took a little nap yesterday and stuff. So I didn't get to listen to all the shows and get the information I like to, where we can discuss stuff. But excuse me. That's a secondary situation anyway. And because our first audience is those who are new. So if we've got any new folks here, I'll tell you, we get up and we put all this together for you. I know you didn't know that until you stumbled on our info, but that's what we do. And we're here for you, so that some of the ambiguity and confusion that they've baked into the cake here can be straightened out for you. And you've been living in an upside down world your whole life. It's based on illusion. You live in illusion, and its foundations of the illusion are that we call debt money, and that you think you're free. And those two little elements that combine together into the illusion in which we live. And so if you're brave enough and you really want truth and you want reality, just step forward and start asking questions, and we'll help straighten that world, turn it right upside for you, and then let you go along your path in reality and see if that's where you'd like to live and to be disassociated from these heinous satanic bastards that rule the earth. Remember, Satan told Jesus, I rule the earth. You want to be with me? And Jesus said no. And so he went to the Rothschilds, evidently. So good morning, folks. How we doing out there? Anybody got any comments or questions? Any new listeners anyway? And of course, if you're new, you're apprehensive. You think we're going to bite you or something. We're not. But I've got to ask you first and tell you that even if you want to just sit there tight for a few minutes and get in the flow of whatever the hell we're going to talk about today, because it's totally spontaneous, then you can come in later. So if you want to belly up now, just hit *6. That's the unmuting device, and go, hey, Roger. Or comment, or whatever you want to question. That's a good one. So if there's any of you there, now's the time to do it. If not, you can do it at any point. It's not this the only spot. Doesn't sound like anybody's there, Paul, to me. So let's go to the broader audience and see what is on your mind here this morning of things that have developed that we might not have talked about yesterday. So anybody got something along those lines this morning? I was afraid of that, Paul, that we're going to be dropping the rock in the well here. Okay.
Somebody will speak up.
Well, you can usually chum them up, you know. I guess one of the things that I saw this morning, we didn't comment on yesterday, was Don Lemon and his group of mischievants and ne'er-do-wells up there in Minneapolis. Did you hear about what they did to that Christian church up there over the weekend, Paul?
No.
They invaded him, and I'm not sure how many, 4 or 5 other ones. Basically invaded an ongoing service at a Christian church there in Minneapolis because the associate pastor is a nice guy. And they went in and totally disrupted the service. I'm not sure to what extent, but pretty much. And so it turns out there's a piece of legislation called the FACE Act. Have you ever heard of that, Paul?
No, never heard of it.
Well, it has to do with this situation right here of people invading services. I'm not sure the extent of it, but Mr. Lemon and his little gang of miscreants could be in real big trouble because that's federal law and state law. Now, I'm not expecting Ellison, that black attorney general up there, who's so commie, to go prosecuting them, but the feds can. So we'll see. We'll see if Mr. Trump and the AG, I think Blondie, I don't know if she's looking to stay attached to her job or not. We'll see. But Mr. President is on his way today or tonight at some point over to Davos, because Davos is this week. So Mr. Trump's going to speak to Davos tomorrow. Boy, that ought to be pretty interesting, don't you think?
Yeah, it should.
We'll see if they boo him or throw frozen water bottles at him or something.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what he plans on saying, but I can only imagine that the best possible outcome is like old man Rothschild's head going. and Klaus McSchwabage.
Oh, did you see? I saw a little clip of him, and of course, he's not in the hierarchy anymore. Well, he is, but behind the scenes. There's too many people who just got revolted by his. They kept associating him with Blofeld from James Bond. Okay. There's somebody sending me a message. But now he's in the background, of course, and Larry Fink from BlackRock fame. And they kept saying a guy that runs a pharmaceutical. I don't think it's Victor Borda. I think it's another one of these guys. I've seen him speak before that runs one of the big pharmaceuticals. And those are the guys that are in charge of it all now. Doesn't that make you sleep better at night knowing that Larry Fink is in charge of Davos and the UN and all that now on top of everything else? I mentioned it one day. I'd heard someone say it years ago. Does anybody remember Larry Fink's claim to fame?
Fink. Wasn't it a magazine?
Nope. Anybody else got a guess? Wow. He supposedly is accredited with inventing derivatives.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I did hear somebody in a Tucker Carlson interview. He was talking to one of his guests, and Tucker said, "I know someone who knows Larry Fink very well." And he said, the person that he knows, Tucker knows, said, "I've never been around an individual who is more miserable." Isn't that interesting? I think that might be the drive, his misery that's causing him whatever it is in his subconscious from all these wacko helmet ideas that they infuse these people with. It's pretty sickening. Anyway, that was interesting. Mr. Fink obviously is over there in Davos. So we'll see what Mr. Trump says tomorrow. So don't tell me somebody in this audience doesn't have anything they want to bring up. Am I supposed to talk for?
Will it be televised?
Well, there's Joan.
Will the Davos?
Pardon, Joan?
Will the Davos thing? Will the Davos thing be televised?
Oh, I'm sure you'll get to see the Trump clip. Yeah. You've got what's the guy's name from Rebel News? He's a Jewish guy, the guy from Canada. He's always over there with his pals, doing interviews on the street like last year, where he walked for quite a while next to Larry Fink, and Fink would never answer a question, of course. So we got that going on over there this week, the meeting of the slavers, the head slavers, I guess. So we'll see, and we'll see how Minneapolis. I just wasn't able to watch much news. Did Minneapolis blow up anymore yesterday? Does anybody have that information? You're gonna have to help me a little bit today. I was a little behind in my work because of yesterday and the nature of last night when I didn't get to watch the stuff I usually watch to gain on current events. So I'm a little bit behind in my work today. I apologize. I admit it forthright, and I'm asking for your help here. I'm asking for your help and helping me get through the show, so I don't have to stumble and bumble through 2 hours and you guys not want to say anything. There's got to be this. Well, there's Joan again. Joan, I thank you for being my salvation. Yes, dear. How can we help you?
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not caught up with the Minnesota thing, the woman getting shot in the face. But was she there protesting? Was she protesting ICE?
Yes.
And why was she protesting ICE?
Well, because she's one of these she's one of these wacko white liberals that are so influenced by this message. And her husband had died a couple of years ago. They had a son. Her husband, I believe, had died. She moved, I think, to Minneapolis. I'm not sure from where. She got hooked up with another gal, and they became lovers. I label them vegetarians. And so her and another gal got to be vegetarians together, and then they were looking over her son, and they put him in a school in southern Minneapolis that's down there for elementary school kids and stuff, and they brainwashed her. They have literal classes for elementary, South Side Minneapolis, something school, social school or something, and they have classes for elementary school where they take lessons like George Floyd and infuse them into every grade of children that they're educating. She had a sticker on the back of her car that said Antifa Warrior. I believe that was it. And yes, they specifically train these people to go and get in the middle of ICE trying to do this work of finding murderers, rapists, pedophiles and stuff and deporting them. And they are trained. And she had been doing that all morning as the lead car of interrupting the ICE people that were doing their work. So I think, is that accurate for Joan? Did I hit it pretty good? Does the cat have y'all's tongue out there this morning or what?
She was keeping ICE from deporting. They
had penetrated. No, they were keeping ICE from arresting them. They were interrupting the process, had been instructed and taught how to do so. And even though they have a perimeter around those operations, they had invaded the perimeter and they were blocking the streets and interfering with officers in the line of duty. Joan, is that difficult to understand?
I got it now. Thank you.
Okay. That's what they were doing. She was the lead car. She shouldn't have been there in the first damn place. And then she tried to argue with them and probably got the car stuck in the snow and in the ice and was trying to get out of that. It looked like to me an officer got in front of the car. She hit him. He had been back in June, arrested someone who was trying to get a pedophile, and he had his arm in the car, and the guy drug him 300 feet. They had to take him to the hospital, Joan, and he had 300 stitches. Okay? So he was already sensitive to that, and when she started all that crap, whether it was reaction or whatever, he popped her in the face, and she's on the escalator to Jesus. Hopefully she's up there by, well, I'm sure it's the escalator to Satan, not Jesus. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So that's the story on what I've put together from what I've learned over the shooting of Miss. What was her name? I can't remember her name. Anyway, there's another guy who's trying to say something there. When Joan did, who was that, please?
Yeah, Roger. This is Dave from Tampa.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, you describe them as these evil people as satanic Jew bastards, but I came across a scripture that I've got to read you that defines them. It made the hair on my neck stand up.
Okay, please do.
It's from a King James version. It's Jude 11 through 13.
Jude,
and it reads
Jude, Jude, right?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Close to the back of the New Testament there. Woe unto them, for they have gone greedily in the heir of Cain, and ran greedily after the heir of Balaam for reward, and perished in the gainsaying of Kor. These are spots in your feast of charity, when they feast with you, feeding themselves without fear. Clouds they are without water, carried about the winds. Trees whose fruit withereth, without fruit, twice dead, plucked up by the roots. Raging waves of the sea, foaming out their own shame. Wandering stars, to whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever.
Yikes. That's pretty good, Dave.
Yeah.
Good for spotting it. I don't think I've ever heard anybody point that out before. The Bible is rife with God's vengeance on these people and their dirty deeds. And as we go into what we study around here on a regular basis, and really, as I've told y'all so many times, you start tracking some of this stuff back, it always goes back to the Bible. Okay, first of all, and it always indicts them. So
absolutely,
here they are again today, and I remember when it hit me. I should tell the story, Dave. You may not have heard this because you were away for a while, not listening regularly. It's one of the really reasons I just look so forward and enjoy the shows with Brent, is because stuff comes out of those shows. Well, that neither Brent or I knew, quite frankly, just in the discussions, and this is one of them. I've told the story before. Yeah, it's very interesting. The guy that originally did the first review on my book is a fellow. I reconnected with him a couple of years ago. Gary Kinghorn, really nice guy. I still don't know how he got my book to review it, quite frankly. He had a house down there at Doug Casey's place in Cafayete. And Doug, the Dollar Vigilante, had a place down there at that time too, and so Gary wrote the review, and he put it on Dollar Vigilante. In fact, it's probably still on Dollar Vigilante. You know, Wahib talks about Dollar Vigilante a lot when he comes around. And I'm trying to think of the Canadian's name that runs it. He does his little walk and talks and stuff now. Maybe somebody in the audience can help me out. I can't remember his name.
Jeff Berwick.
What is it, Lisa?
Jeff Berwick.
Thank you, Jeff Berwick, Canadian and financial guy. And he was living down at Cafayete. You know, if you watch him much, Lisa, if you do, you'll notice he's a lot clearer than he used to be, and he quit drinking. He talks about it occasionally. Well, when he was down there
Yeah,
at this
I
point,
don't watch him as much as.
right. Well, he was still drinking when he was living at Doug Casey's. And he got in a situation where him and his wife had to leave Argentina and probably can't go back. But anyway, that's when they moved up to, where is he? In the famous Mexican town there on the Pacific, where he has his annual meeting. Anyway, he was living in Argentina at that time. He had a house in Doug Casey's place, and Gary had a house down there.
Is it Acapulco?
Yeah, Acapulco. Thank you. And so Gary knew him, and that's how he got this review on Dollar Vigilante. Like I said, I'm sure it's probably still there in the archives. If you're going to put on Sovereign to Surf or Roger Sayles or something, it'll probably come up if you want to read it. And so Gary and I started communicating, and I became aware of him, and he had gone down there to Casey's place and done it. He bought the land, had the house contracted, be built, and everything else, and he never brought his wife and his children down there. He had 3 children. And when he came down there, well, the reason they moved down there is because they were promising him a big school, a nice school. And then the school didn't work out the way they thought it had planned, and so they sold their house and moved back to California, where Gary is now. Now, at that point in time, he was the head of merchandising in the world for Cisco. Pretty big computer operation, right, Paul? Cisco? And so Gary had some pretty illustrious professional credentials, and so when I went up there to Cafayete, it was he was there with the family. So anyway, when the first he got a hold of the book, somehow I think through Henry Macau, somehow I still don't know honestly. Anyway, he wrote a really good review of the book, and him and I became associated with that, and so. That's how I got up there at their open house. They have 2 open houses, day and night, spring and fall. Excuse me. So anyway, then Gary wrote another article that was published in Dollar Vigilante. You probably, I'm sure this is still there too. And it was titled, "Jesus is an Anarchist." Well, that's a provocative title. And so I was reading the article, and in the article, he mentioned this word called Corban, Corban. Dave, I hope you haven't heard this story because it is quite impactful. Okay. So I saw the word, and, being attuned to words, I went and tried to, I'd never heard it before. It's only mentioned twice in the New Testament. And so I went to the net and tried to figure out the meaning, and it said, well, you have not performed under the laws of Moses, and you were executing whatever it said, Corban. Well, it didn't explain it anymore. So finally, this in the early days when Brent and I first started doing these shows, and so I brought it up on we were in the Friday afternoon in those days over on the Micro Effect, and I brought it up, and Brent, as Brent is, he goes, well, let me go see what I wrote about this in my study Bible. Okay. So he starts reading it. Well, it turns out that the Pharisees back in those days, Dave, well, they were using this Corban, and that's who Jesus was railing about it. And so as we get in and find out what it is, you probably will find this hard to believe, but the Pharisees they'd indoctrinated the youth. They'd corrupted the youth of the day. Find that surprising, huh? And
oh yeah, go after the youth, yeah.
Yeah, and what they would do is they would infuse them with this concept of Corban. And what Corban was is under the laws of Moses. That's what they were alluding to. They didn't define it very well on the internet. But under the laws of Moses, as the parents get old, they're supposed to move in with the children. and the children take care of them in their old age. And in doing so, throughout their lives, they save things of value. And then as they're getting older and they need help, the children sell the things of value to help take care of the elderly parents. Fair, huh? Laws of Moses, right? You got the
Very.
grandparents in with the children. They can teach them that, oh, this is the way it used to be when we were young. And now the Pharisees have totally corrupted that, and they don't like that kind of information being fed to the kids because it screws up their programming. Okay. So anyway, what they were talking about was the Pharisees would corrupt the children and get the children to come and tell the Pharisees what the wealth was they were holding for their parents and where it was. And the Pharisees would declare it Corban and come in and take it. They'd steal it, like self-help remedies, seizure. This is like the predecessor of seizure. Okay, except there wasn't any process that we know about. Anyway, they'd come in and steal the valuables, and they'd take them back to the temple, and they would sell them, and the proceeds would support the social system, like Social Security. And that if you converted to Christianity, they kicked you out of the Social Security system, even 2,000 years ago. Now, is that interesting or what? You want to talk about the same?
Sounds a lot like today.
Well, I was going to say, talk about the same people doing the same thing. That's exactly what that whole story illustrates. It's just we're dealing with the friggin' Pharisees.
I had never heard that.
Okay, well, I'm glad then it came up and I got to tell you that story because that is really impactful. It has been on me for all these years anyway. Because it
have it all figured out.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, they're just the same people doing the same thing with a whole lot more modern technology and insight. Like back then, they didn't have double entry bookkeeping. Double entry bookkeeping wasn't invented until the reign of the monetary families in Italy. And it was one of those monetary families that came up with double entry bookkeeping. And it's double entry bookkeeping that allows them to do this whole financial scam because they can discount the notes. They lay them on the wrong side as a liability. For those of you who might not know this about the monetary system, they enter them on the liability side of the ledger. They discount the notes into the secondary market, then they get paid a discounted amount. They bring that back and put it on the asset side of the ledger. Double entry bookkeeping wouldn't be possible without that. And then they got new infusion of cash. You get your collateral paid off, the builder, the house, or the car, or whatever it is, and everything rolls on, and they've got a new infusion of credit cash. So the whole thing runs on credit. You've heard people say there is no money, there's only credit. And the whole credit scam starts right there when they attach your birth certificate as a warehouse receipt to that bond and sell it into the open market. There's the start of the whole monetary system is right there. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And just like
it's really easy to
it is easy to understand. It's not complicated when you really have the basics and you can see the schematic in your mind. Okay.
There's a lot of tentacles, but if you get the basics and you understand the conceptual view, but there's a lot of tentacles you have to learn in some time, but it's really easy.
Well, it is, and what we do here, what we do is easy too. What we do to help you get out of this, should you want to, it's your decision, of course. What we do is empower you, and we show you that this is what this animal is. This is why they so ferociously slam anybody that asks questions, because it's so deceitful and simple and easy to get out of, and they can't do a damn thing about it. That's their big fear that they've been covering up for all these years. Well, somebody figured it out. and they can't do anything about it. Has the federal government done anything about this? No. The people that do it, as exampled by the Dean and Suzanne, well, they might classify them wrong, but they're still nationals. Okay, they still have removed themselves from the tentacles of the federal government, and it's easy to do. It's non-confrontational. It is literally, well, how much have you paid the IRS over your lifetime? Is that worth a handful of envelopes with certified return receipt requests in them to get out of that? Of course it is.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so hey, that's all you got to do is put them on notice. Now, after all these years, they're finally, somebody is starting to say, let's see if we can screw with these people. Or that's not necessarily from the IRS. That's coming from the state there, like with Michael's example. And they get like, well, we can see the mindset of the people in the Minnesota government, can't we? Like Ellison, the attorney general, the governor, all the other shills that are up there. I guess you could kind of take your temperature of your taxing division off of those folks, couldn't you? Yeah.
I just can't understand that level of mind. That type of evil.
David, none of us can. And I look back and I say, how do these people come to these stupid ass conclusions? Well, it's like the South Side School of Minneapolis that infuses George, whatever his name, Floyd stuff into every elementary school class that goes through there, and all these other ideas of social justice and this, that, and the other. And that's why these young people, I guess, come out thinking like they do, Dave. You know, the old saying, if you're 25 and you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart. And if you're 40 and you're a conservative, you don't have a brain. It's an old Winston Churchill quote. It's damned accurate.
Very.
So it's these youth that I try and, when I'm looking at this, I try and look back at my youth and think of some of the things I thought of. Of course, that was Vietnam and a lot of the initial social upheaval. And hey, what's wrong with free love when you're in your late teens or 20s, right? That's a pretty good deal, right? And all the other stuff and some of the good drugs that came around and all that. Well, you were wacko, but at some point in your life, you straighten back out. And hopefully your parents have planted good seeds with you, and that those will later germinate. Was somebody trying to say Roger there a minute ago?
Yeah, Roger, it's Samuel.
Samuel, good morning.
I just wanted to point out, good morning, it also goes to what Tupper Saucy summed up, but the Bible says that Satan only has dominion over temptation, deception, spiritual blindness. That's his realm.
Yeah. Well, you know what Al Addis you said one time that really caught my ear. Al's name's come up quite a bit lately. And he made the statement, he said, even the devil makes you volunteer. Think about it and put it to your thesis there. It's exactly correct. You even got to volunteer into the devil, folks. You ever think
He's
about
created deceptions for you to volunteer into.
Yep. Absolutely. Temptations.
And we well know here.
Oh, for the temptations of Eve. Remember that song that started out? I wish I could remember that little bit. It started out with, but it was about that. It was a good song. Well, for the temptations of Eve. So yeah, it's that's who we're fighting. It's the same old battle, good and evil, or as you could say, Brent says the battle is between the bankers and the people from the beginning of time. John W. Benson, my teacher, said it's the battle between Lex Rex and the common law. Lex Rex, the law of the king, law of man, versus the common law, nature's God. That's the battle we're in right here. Well, it's not much of a battle because we just absolutely slay the son of a bitches, sons of Satan bitches, every time we issue one of their paperwork to them. They don't have any answer for it. They've been caught. They've been caught slaving, stealing, lying, murdering, every other crime that you could probably come up with in the eons of man. these people have committed right here. And they're scared to death of what we got. Okay? How do I know? Well, just look at the way they react. That's how you tell their demeanor. They're having people from the passport office call, like Jerry a couple of years ago, and ask him all these questions. What were they trying to do? They were trying to find out how much he knew. They were trying to find out if just some Anna von Wright student or somebody that really knew what they were talking about. And the guy told Jerry in the conversation, "You really know your stuff." That is a direct compliment to me, and I appreciate it. And that's why I stress education, education, education. It's the key to this whole thing is you getting command of this information and making it part of you, where it becomes like you, if you're somebody ask a question, you regurgitate an answer without thinking. Bam. Yes, sir, Sergeant Major, sir. Bam. Okay. And when you got that, you're truly free, and you're at that stage empowered, as you can hear some of the examples here on the program. Jerry was empowered because he'd learned the information, and he had that conversation with Hilton, whoever, first, last name, who knows. And I think that was some kind of a high up guy. And the reason I think that is because Jerry, very astutely, when the guy told him he couldn't issue a passport, his wife was born in Syracuse, New York, and she was a citizen of the United States. And Jerry came back and he rebutted all those pretty good. And Mr. Hilton was left high and dry, only saying that you really know your stuff. And then for those of you who don't know that story, Jerry and wife went on with friends of theirs down to South Florida on a vacation. It was in the middle of the winter, right around Christmas, New Year's. And Hilton at the passport office had said, well, he asked Jerry, this is what I want to say. When Jerry asked him, what about my administrative appeal? And he said, there is none. I'm the appellate officer. Folks, top appellate officers do not call people like this. They wait until that comes up through the chain and gets to their desk. Jerry said, what's my administrative appeal? He said, you don't have one. I'm the top guy. That was total crap. But it shows how they got their curiosities up, or their concern, probably more likely. And so then the guy tells Jerry, said, well, I can't do that for you. You want me to send your package back or what? Because there's a payment in it for the passport. And Jerry's thinking on his feet. He goes, yeah, we'll just approach this to himself. Yeah, we'll approach this another way. Yeah, why don't you send that back to me? So when they get back from Florida, what's in the mailbox? The wife's passport. It was a bluff. They were trying to see how much he knew. There's that level of concern. Now, that was a couple of years ago. They've probably seen quite a few affidavits since then, I would think. We haven't had anybody experience that got back to us and told us about it. But they're concerned, folks, because they got no remedy. They got no remedy. Oh, they can scare the crap out of Mike up there with Minneapolis or the Minnesota Taxing Authority, which has got to be just as inept as the rest of the damn bureaucracy and hierarchy in the state. Because as far as I can tell, they're all wackos. All of the elected officials and appointed officials in Minnesota sure seem like they're wackos. Okay. So I'm pretty sure Mike's going to get this straightened out. It's all a bluff. We've never had anybody. We didn't have any objection to taxation for years, Paul. It's only really kind of started lately, you know. At least to my knowledge, we didn't have any kind of situations like we're seeing now. So they're trying to get back and realize they got no power, and some sort of a knee-jerk reaction either from uneducated bureaucrats or people that are intentionally trying to sabotage these. I kind of tend to think it's the first ones. They're coming out and lashing out with this stuff. They think they've got the power to invoke and employ, and they don't. Okay, so they'll find out. Go ahead, Paul.
I think they're like the little Danish boy.
Yeah.
They're seeing this happening, and they're seeing more of these, trying to figure out a way how to stick a finger in the dike.
And they can't do it. One thing I'd suggest, Mike was using liberally the term American national, and that is legitimate. We found it, I don't know, sometime recently in one of the statutes or something somewhere. First time I'd seen it. So that is a legitimate thing. But
The IRS doesn't focus on that. They simply focus on non-resident alien.
They don't know what any of those terms mean any more than we did if we'd have seen them years ago. And you've got to, as Mike's conversation evidence, you did a good job, Mike. I'm not shaming you. You've got to steer them over to the things they can recognize and they can input and they can do something about, and that's their own laws. And so when they said, "Oh, you don't," and Mike said, "No, I don't." Do you mean you don't have to pay taxes? That was, I think, what the gal asked, and Mike agreed with that. Well, technically, it's just not right. I'm signing up to pay taxes if I owe them, but only on 871B and 877B constitutional taxes, and it's right there in the statute. And now you can not only bring in the fact that I pay all constitutional taxes that I'm obligated to pay, but that this is the other status, this non-resident alien. Okay, so let's go back to the basics. There's only two political statuses. You're either free or you're a slave. I've never had, and I've offered copious amounts of money. If anybody else could come up with another alternative, a third or more, nobody's ever done it. So I'm going to go back and assume that there's only two. You're either free or you're a slave, right? So which one are you? He could ask that. You could ask that to the IRS person. If you're trying to explain, if you get into the explanation thing, which I'm not sure is productive or not, but if you get into that, you can say, well, which one are you? We know what the slave is. It's right there. Yes, Gary?
It's very important that people understand the reason you're non-resident is residency is interpreted to be a person who is domiciled or lives in Washington, D.C. If you're a non-resident, you're not that. You are a state person.
Let me put it this way. I'm going to disagree with you in one slight way. It doesn't mean you live in Washington, D.C. It means you're under the laws of Washington, D.C., no matter where you live, even if you're out of the country. Remember that the U.S. for many years is the only country that taxed workers on their worldwide income. Why was that? Because they own you. Okay. So, but let me bring in
because you're a resident.
In Black's First Law Dictionary. Hold just a second, Gary, if you would. In Black's One Law Dictionary, if you look under residency, it's where you receive your rights and discharge your duties. That's law. Okay? So go ahead, Gary. I just want to make that refined point correction.
Well, it's just important to fully understand that concept of your rights and duties are in Washington, D.C. if you claim residency. You think it means you're a state where you are domiciled. It doesn't. Like you said, it's where you owe your rights and duties to, and that's Washington. Yep. When you're a non-resident, you abort that so that you're no longer underneath the rules and regulations of Washington, D.C. And also, you'll read your state statutes and your state acts. When you claim residency underneath those laws and duties of Washington, D.C., you are foreign to your state.
Correct.
So it allows your state to tax you as a foreigner.
Doing interstate commerce.
Roger.
Yes. John, I think I hope I get this right. Remember in the Bible when Jesus and the disciples were in Galilee and taxes came up and he said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, etc. and he had one of the disciples take a fish and pull a coin out of its mouth. You remember that, Gary?
Yep.
They were
Exactly.
foreigners. They were foreigners in Galilee.
And that's the reason your state is allowed to tax you, because you are foreign to the small s state.
Mm-hmm. So, as convoluted and complicated as this is, if you're new and just being confronted with this, it's true. And these are the links that these monsters have gone through to hide this as successfully as they've hidden it for, well, we've turned the calendar year. We're in January, almost at the end. We've got February and March. March the 9th of this year, we will have been in Babylonian captivity for 94 years. 94 years. The original Israelites were in Babylonian captivity for 70 years. We got them beat by a quarter of a century. And don't you think for 1 minute that that's not the condition these people, and they've got us in, were in Babylonian captivity. Yes, Paul?
Aren't we special?
Yeah. Well, we're special. We are, because we can get out of it. See?
Roger.
Those other
We're
people,
special because we've survived another 20 years of the
well, I think we're the chosen people, quite honestly. But Samuel, you had something to input here?
Yeah, I would challenge everybody to read the Expatriation Act of 1868. Right before the 14th Amendment, they used the term in there, quote, foreign, lowercase f, states, lowercase s. Foreign states. There's the reference. The first reference to their trickery.
Yeah, and they had not, of course, taken over the states yet, because this was before the quasi-passage of the 14th Amendment. The whole damn scheme's built on sand. Now, they've been able to hold it together for all these years simply because of people's ignorance and their overbearing on folks. We're the first ones that have found their little trick. The one that Colonel House, in his personal letter to Woodrow Wilson, said only 1 in a million could figure it out. If 1 or 2 do, we've got plausible deniability. No, you don't. You ain't got it anymore, House. And the rest of these corrupted son of a bitches that think they're so wonderful and better than everybody else because they'll do stuff like this. I've got to think that that's their basis. We're better than everybody else because we'll lie, cheat, steal, murder, and do whatever to get what we want. And these other people over here with restraints by their religion will not. And I think that maybe is their corrupted thinking of why they're better than everybody else, because they'll do anything, Machiavellian approach, to achieve their ends. And the means justify the ends, justify the means, as is description of Machiavellian thinking and activity. Yes, Paul?
You know what? Babelbucks, shekels, monopoly money, Federal Reserve notes, they're all descriptions for the U.S. dollar. I think I'm just going to start calling them sand dollars. Because if you've ever had a sand dollar in your hand, you got to be very, very careful with it, or it crumbles and it's worthless. And I think that's pretty much what we got going on with FRNs.
You're looking for in the middle of those sand dollars, that little stuff like it's in the inner eye, the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. When you break one, you get those little things that look like that. Yeah. Well, it's a hell of a mess, and myself and you, all of you out there listening live or later, you're fortunate enough to have you got some kind of blessing, folks, because this message resonates with you. The ones that walk away from this, they're the ones, if you really wanted to take it back biblically, back to the Old Testament, and they're the ones that do not have a love of the truth. They don't have a love of the truth, so he has sent them strong delusion. They'll believe a lie. Now, whether they don't believe it, which some of them may, I don't know, or they're just too chicken ship high in transit to follow through on it, or they're the third people. They don't want to look into this because they don't want. They've always known something was wrong, but they don't really want to know what's wrong, Paul, because they don't want to face it.
Right.
Those are the ones that have not a love of the truth. Those are the ones that climb back in the little pink cloud. But the pink cloud is dissipating. And it ain't as pink as it used to be, or it's pink with blood, whatever.
Yeah, well, the red sky at night, that's sulfur in the air, and
Sailor's
it's
Delight.
not a good sign.
You know that old saying? Red sky.
Yeah, it used to be red sky at night, sailor's delight, red sky at morning, sailor's seed warning. But that's not the case anymore. You know, chemtrails have like messed that all up.
Obfuscated.
Absolutely. Oh, we have beautiful fiery red sunsets every single night.
Really?
It's not
that's
because of any good thing.
No, that's indicative of particles in the air. And I can tell you, when I was in Argentina, you may remember they had this Chilean eruption that even closed down the airports, Buenos Aires and all, because jet engines are particularly harmed by volcanic ash at the intake part. My understanding.
Yeah, if they fly through it, it'll take the plane down.
So that volcano went off, and for a couple of weeks, we had the absolute most gorgeous sunsets I've ever seen. I'm a big sunset guy, too.
Yeah.
Man.
That was the sulfur and the ash in the air.
Oh, my God. It's just like fire engine red sunsets are just stunning.
Yeah. I'm going to seize the opportunity, seeing as the Whistler is coming very quickly. We are on 106.9 WBOU FM in Chicago. Thank you so much for joining us for the first hour. We hope you stick around for the second hour. Any other platforms that may drop off at the top of this hour, like possibly Home Network TV, Go Live TV, Stream Live Tube, Home Network.tv. Did I mention that one? Let's see, Home Network.
Mention it
Freedom,
twice.
FreedomNation.tv. I missed that one. There we go. I knew there was another one in there somewhere. If you want to join us, follow us into the second hour, go to thematrixdocs.com, grab the link for free conference call. You can join us live on the show and actually interact with Roger or anybody else on the platform if you have a question
Join
or
the
want to be
discussion.
part of the conversation.
We love that.
Absolutely. Use free conference call through thematrixdocs.com, or you can pick us up on eurofolkradio.com, Global Voice Radio Network, or go to rumble.globalvoiceradio.net and you'll catch the Rumble stream. Thanks so much for being with us. All of the valued platforms that support the Radio Ranch with Roger Sayles, including 106.9 WBOU FM Chicago, the pulse of Chicago.
I'm trying to get you folks free.
That's what we're here for. Come on.
You know, we used to have Sam around here a bunch. He's a Chicago listener there, and he popped in recently, back before the holidays or something. We don't see him too often. People come in, they get educated, they hang around for a while, and then it just gets to a point, I guess, where their lives take them some other direction or whatever. I don't know if they listen to the archives. I hope so. If you're one of us, one of the free folks, you should want to be keeping up, because this right here at this forum is where you're going to hear anything, positive or negative or whatever. And so I would trust that people want to stay in for doctors and lawyers and stuff, they have continuing education, Paul. That's kind of what this is. It's CE for freedom folks. And I would think that you would want to keep up with what's going on in this arena, as it has a direct or possibly indirect bearing on you. So we just appreciate all our students. I wish I knew how many. My personal estimate is that we've affected about 2 million folks over the years here. And the reason I say that, it's an extrapolation from what happened to Glenn when they were trying to send John and Glenn up the river, which they eventually did. Not on any of this. There wasn't any of this brought in, and the evidence of that is that they were tried by a U.S. attorney from Salt Lake. And any time there's a tax case, they always fly in a tax specialist. So it was not a tax case because the U.S. Attorney in Salt Lake handled the case. And at one point during the proceedings, I'm not sure when, this is why. John knew one hell of a lot about the law. I'd put him up against anybody on legal thesis, honestly. And Glenn is a great writer. And so what happened was any time that proceeding in Salt Lake at the district court level, anytime there was some kind of an objection, the boys would object, and when there's an objection, they'd appeal it to the 10th Circuit. Now, when you appeal something on an ongoing trial, they generally, I don't believe, continue until that comes back. And so they interrupted the process. It took them, I think, 5 years. 5 years in court to convict him, if I remember correctly. Quite a while. And so during those proceedings, at one point, the U.S. Attorney, Glenn told me this after he got out of jail. We were talking on the phone. He said the U.S. Attorney got up in open court and said, "Sir, Your Honor, whatever, the IRS has received over 100,000 of these affidavits." Now, listen, John and Glenn hadn't been teaching that long. There was only 1,200 paid students. There should have only been 1,200 affidavits up there that they received, but we're talking now about the Patriot movement. Okay, and people that are dying to get out of this, they'll take a shot at anything that comes along that looks like it might help them, and that's the manifestation of 100,000 affidavits off 1,200 paid students. That's the Patriot movement. You want to know why I don't charge for this, Paul? That's part of it. Okay. I just soon give it away for free. All right. So if that's the case of that place and that time and that situation where they'd received over 100,000 of these affidavits from the Patriot community, well, they'd only been doing this just a couple of years. Well, hell, we've been doing this now with answers for 15 years. And I just have to take that example from the U.S. Attorney and amplify it out and show you that, well, that's where I come to my conclusion. I think we probably personally, directly or indirectly, affected about 2 million people. I don't know about Ann Von Rice. I don't know about David Strait. I don't know if they even take those things seriously. Take those people and their 31-page opuses and whatever Anna's people send in. I don't know if they even take those seriously. But they damn sure take ours seriously. Okay? And been proven numerous times right here. And you've heard the people, if you're a regular listener, you've heard the folks come on and tell you about it. And I think this little story with Dean and Suzanne on a flight boarding pass, Paul, on a flight boarding pass, they list them as American Samoans.
Yeah. You know what? I think part of the problem that we have is it's so simple that people can't believe it could be that simple, because they've got the David Straits out there that are doing the 31-page opuses and thumb drives full of reams of information. You got the Anna Von Rights people that are connected with the state, national, which isn't even a thing. There's state citizen, but there's no state national. But they're in every state in the union, and you got to throw in all this paperwork. You got to give your thumbprint. You got to do all this yada 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 bullshit, and then you have to get an ID card that declares that, like, from some state national authority, that yes, you are a state national in good standing. I mean, it's like they're trying to replace the passport card. All we do, we send an affidavit to the Secretary of State. We apply for a passport, make sure that it reflects our political status. We're done. It's over. There isn't months of study to do. Don't try to make this difficult. Don't listen to these guys that tell you have to bury your noses in books for 6 months before you can even start to get your freedom. Now, get your freedom and then learn how to protect it afterwards.
And then if you're going to join one of their assemblies, they're going to permit you to join, from what I hear. You got to go pass a test with somebody. Some guy's going to, or girl's going to ask you a whole bunch of questions. to see if you can get in there or not. And then you
Just,
got,
just
I'm going to get you in just a second. And then it has no bearing at all, or get you some register in some database. It has no affiliation with any government agency. Yes, sir.
there's no
Who's got a
teeth.
comment
Hang
there?
on, hang on. Let me expand on your point really quickly first. And that's the thing. People feel like, and people believe that they have to, if they want to do something or become something, they have to go to school for like years to get that piece of paper that from somebody else that says, yes, I know who I am and I know what I'm doing. Uh, No, you don't have to. Anyway, comment. Go
Well,
ahead. Thank you.
yeah, comment.
This is probably Utah.
Pardon me, it's who?
Carl in Utah.
Carl,
Oh, Carl. Okay.
Utah.
Talk right in the phone, Carl. Hey, buddy. Morning.
Yeah, I'm trying. Sorry, I got headphones on. But, I recently ran across something of Anna Von Wright's where she won the court case she was in. Just an FYI on that.
No, they won the IRS case.
I do not know. I just ran into something. She says, and it was a video, and I was just kind of surprised. But however that is, I don't know what I saw exactly. I don't know.
Well, if won on what grounds, we don't know. I do know she lost an IRS case, and they forfeited a 1 million or more piece of property. They're
It was
already in
1.2
the
or
process,
1.4.
something like that, of seizing it. And what she did was wrote on her submission to the charges was, "I refuse to contract." Well, they went ahead and said, "Doesn't make any difference." We know and understand why, I hope. And they're seizing over $1 million worth of land. Doesn't sound like much of a damn victory to me.
Doesn't matter if you refuse to contract, if they contract with the people that you registered your
She already
property with.
contracted.
Ta-da.
She said she was a citizen of the United States and a resident. She already contracted with them.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, well, I feel sorry for her people, and I hope we get some refugees over here occasionally. But it's
And they can't believe how easy it is.
well, no, they can't. It's simple too, and all you got to do is just show people. As I try and do this with approaching people, you don't have to learn all this stuff, jot and tittle. Go learn the concepts. Go learn about Babylonian code and what the repercussions of it are and how it operates, as we call it, the UCC. Go over and learn a little bit about the feudal system and how you're in this lineage of silent contracts since your great-great-grandpeople parents were thrown into it in 1933. Go learn those things. It's not difficult. You'll see how it works, and really all you have to do to defend your position is say, "No, I'm not that person."
Mm-hmm.
Really?
The
better
real
you can
key
back
is
it up, the better you're off. If you have to get in some sort of a urinating match with them, but otherwise it's just as simple as, "I'm not that person." That's your 14th Amendment person. I'm not that. I'm the 13th Amendment guy that they said Alex Jones, the Bloomberg lawyers in a big lawsuit, said, well, Alex doesn't have access to the 13th Amendment. I've never heard anybody, I've never heard him mention it a few times. I've never heard anybody say why. He doesn't know why. He thinks it's weird because he doesn't know. That's only for state citizens. Nationals now.
the thing is, you have to change your mindset. You don't need to get any permission. You don't need to get any certification or recognition from any man or agency. You're superior. You owe your allegiance to God. You get your direction from one place, the Bible. You don't need anybody to vouch for you to say that you're a national or that you have a PhD in this, that, and the other thing. You don't need it.
That doesn't stand for post hole digger, okay?
Well, sometimes it does, because some of them are dumber than a box of rocks.
I certainly agree with that. It's a simple process. All we got is you spread the word, and what the really overriding thing they've done is use fear to condition the hell out of the public. People are scared to death of dealing with these people. I understand it. I'm not being critical. What you have to do is get re-empowered and get over that. Hold it. According to the chief, well, hold on just a second. The chief law book that we're dealing with here, Vattel's Law of Nations. Every man has the right of personal political self-determination. What does that mean? I get to live under the laws that I want to live under. They still conform to that, but only partially because they've hidden your repatriation avenue where you can go back to the state citizen. Now they go, okay, we still conform to Vattel's, but you've got to go through this expatriation method that's totally different. But you've got the power, and that's if there's one lesson that I can try and get across to people, just beat into you is you've got the power. They don't have the power. They tricked you out of yours. Take it back. Carl, was that you trying to say something?
No, it was me again, Dave. I was just going to say,
hey.
if you understand why she's so easy to get out of.
You're correct, and some people just have a real hard time with that, Dave. And it's funny, the conditioning takes effect with people differently. And that's just something you got to get over, folks. Look, they don't have the power to do this. I've got the power. I put them on notice. It was fraud. I did everything I'm supposed to. They will not prevail. We haven't seen one case in 15 years of them prevailing on this, folks.
Good morning, Roger. Good morning. Buenas tardes. Roger, I have a question for you. Then, I was born in Puerto Rico. Which one is my state? Where I live or where I'm born?
Well, you were born in Puerto Rico. It's not a state. It's a territory, but they're incorporated into the U.S. system, so you were born as a citizen of the United States. You didn't have to immigrate and naturalize in the U.S. You just moved to the U.S. and start working, right? Okay, well, I'd say right now you're in Virginia, right? I'd say you're in the...
I always say I am a Virginian, that's it.
Yeah, that's all you got to say.
Okay, Roger, thank you.
All right, boy, you're welcome.
Roger, and just if I go vocal, it's confusing, because over there we don't got the same rights that people here, Well, we got similar rights, but not the same.
Well, now hold it. You're born in Puerto Rico. You're born as citizens of the United States, right? Well, then you do have the same rights as the people here. It's just you're in a territory, not a state.
But the problem is over there that people are too indoctrinated, even the government. It's like here, They don't even know who they are.
Nope,
yeah.
Sure don't.
All right, Roger, thank you.
Yep, that's the Sun Tzu curse. You don't know who you are, and you don't know who your enemies are. I heard Larry come through there a second ago. Morning, Larry.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. It's a stunning day in Ecuador today. I had to get my apartment cleaned because she had problems with her children at school last week, so I had to go out in it this afternoon. Anyway, pretty good, all in all.
Great. Yeah,
well,
I was just going to respond to something that
I use it in a very probably counterproductive way, Larry, and that means that because she's here, I don't like being here when she's doing all that cleaning, of course, and so I use an excuse to go out to my favorite pizza place and have a pizza.
Oh, okay. That's always good.
Well, it's probably not good for you, but it's good for me because I get hungry for it. I'm like, damn, I'd like to, your body tells you sometimes I really want to go have a pizza. And so this gives me an opportunity to do that. What do you have on your mind, Larry?
Well, before I get to that, I was just going to say I discovered a great pizza place down on Racetrack Road. When you were living in Jacksonville, do you remember that road?
I never
It's
have
in St.
lived.
Johns
I've
County.
never
It's
lived
kind of
in.
like the dividing line.
I've never lived in Jacksonville. I did come over there one
Okay.
time
Well, I know
to
this is
pick up
true.
a
Yeah.
car. I had a car imported from Germany, and the import port was Jacksonville, and I had to go down in that maze of ports and pick it up and go through all that stuff. At one point, all the time up there.
Yeah, this guy, they built a plaza on Racetrack Road and a couple of years ago. Um, and I was there when it was being built, like deliveries to the people. And then once the stores were starting to get, established and having some semblance of looking like a storefront, I remember making a delivery and the owner was there, and I was talking to him, and here I found out he was from Brooklyn. If you go into his pizza shop now, there's all kinds of Brooklyn, paraphernalia on the walls and different things like that. But I was talking to him, and I said, I was talking to someone else one time, and I heard that the whole secret to the pizza is water. Do you agree with that? He said, no. He said, that could be true, but we believe it's all in the dough, and we get all our dough from New York. And so this pizza is fantastic. It's really, authentic. Like you're eating it right from, some small suburb in Italian suburb in New York City. And it's just absolutely fantastic. And it's pretty cheap, too. Like $3 a slice, and you get a huge slice. So every time I'm going by that place, I'm making my deliveries, and I'm already a little hungry. I'll stop in there and grab a slice or two.
What?
Anyway, I wanted to. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to respond to something that Gary said, and then of course you added something that you believe he left out. He said that residence means that you are living in D.C., and then you said you're living under the laws of D.C.
Correct.
The problem with that is most states in the union, when it comes to their tax codes, they are using a geographical definition and even some legal definitions, but they're not using a federal political definition. And here's an example. It says to determine Minnesota for tax purposes, you're generally a resident if you're domiciled in the state and they have which is your permanent home, or if you meet the 183-day rule, spending over half the year in Minnesota and maintaining a year-round home, which they call an abode. The state looks at your actions, not just words, considering factors like bank accounts, driver's licenses, voter registration, and family ties to see if you intended to change your permanent home, even if you spend significant time elsewhere. So, I don't think you found other areas on the Minnesota website that Mike could use in his response to having a real estate tax liability. But I could share some. I think I discovered a very important verse in the Bible to go along with an earlier discussion. There's a gentleman that was sharing scripture, and but anyway, yeah, the modern day fake Jew political Zionists have not changed their playbook. And I know you've often taught that you believe a 1040, and I agree with you, by the way, that a modern day 1040 is nothing more than a Jewish shetar. And I think I discovered, this whole concept in the book of Malachi. You're familiar with that book?
Well,
right,
I
Roger?
guess probably distantly. Go ahead.
Right. So the book of Malachi is the last book listed in the Bible. It's kind of between the Testaments, and it's famously quoted because the last word of that book ends with the word curse, and then there's so many several hundred years of silence between the testaments. I think maybe 400, and then it picks up with Matthew, and then of course the birth of Jesus Christ. Well, anyway, in that book of Malachi, if you come down to chapter 3 and verse 5, it says this, and this just goes to show that they've not changed their playbook. The book of Malachi was written to priests that the Lord was pronouncing judgment against the Jewish leadership, the priests, and so the Lord says this in verse 5 of chapter 3, and I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, and against the adulterers, and against false swearers, and now get this, Roger, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wages.
Oh,
There you are, right there.
Yeah.
And we still use those modern terms. When you go get a job, you get hired, and you get a wage. And so this whole concept of, stealing someone's wages goes all the way back to the book of Malachi. And the verse goes on to say, the widow and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith the Lord of hosts. But I just thought that was very interesting.
Well, as
that this
I've
whole
told
idea
you,
of a Jewish settler goes all the way back to that book right there.
I remember when John wrote, when he was teaching us all this stuff, somebody back when they instituted the statute staple in England said this goes back to time out of mind, which is exactly what you're showing us in the book of Malachi. Now, I want to go back to the residency thing. If there's new people listening, this is a very confusing term. I've maintained after being involved in this for so many years that this is the most dangerous word in the whole New World Order, because this is how they do things like attach a geographical definition instead of a political definition to you by these nebulous, oh, you've been in the state 180 days. Here's what it boils down to. You are the ultimate arbiter of what laws you're under. You, Vattel's Law of Nations. You get to choose that, not them. And that's what they're doing. I've also said, numerous times, if you'll go back and find where they assigned a double meaning to resident, you're probably going to find the roots of this scheme. Okay, because it is a really key term. Every country in the world wants you to be one, and nobody understands what the hell it is. Is that it doesn't have to do with where you live. It's got to do with what rights and benefits you get and discharge. Okay, so the fact that you have that decision doesn't allow them to geographically go in and tell you what you are with all these nebulous other terms and ways of coming out with it. You can go, and I mentioned this many times, or numerous times, you may not have heard it. When I was in paralegal school, I had a roommate who was a Patriot guy, had written a couple of books, had a radio show back then, Jeff Ganopowski. I doubt if any of you ever heard of him. Anyway, Jeff came home one day, and he goes, there's a line in the Georgia's code annotated that, the statutes of Georgia, over in the traveling and the driving part, which says is a one sentence statement. It's not a definition, it's a statement. And it says the term resident is a rebuttable presumption. Doesn't expand on it. It's right below in Georgia where they use those same type geographical tests to try and identify you've been in the state longer than 30 days, this, that, and the other. Well, they're attaching a geographical definition to you on this key word. Go to Webster's and look under resident. I really encourage you to do this. You don't have to go to a law library. All you have to do is go to the Webster's Collegiate Dictionary. Look under the term resident. You're going to see two definitions. There's more, but the first two are the ones, and they're very self-explanatory. I'll get you in just a second. And the first one says a resident. Resident is the act or fact residence, the act or fact of living or dwelling in a place for some time. Well, that certainly could apply to that. But the second one is the same exact definition. The act or fact of living or dwelling in a place for some time for the receipt of a benefit or the discharge of a duty. I'm not that resident. I do not receive 14th Amendment rights. I do not have civil rights. I have God given rights. I'm going to prove it to you in the way that you require. I'm going to submit some sort of a statement or a affidavit, and I'm going to tell you what I am, and you've got to recognize it because that's my power. If you do not recognize that, then you're open tyrants. You cannot tell me what I am. And as I've maintained for a long time, if somebody wants to go back and do the etymology research, the research on the word, and wherever you find that they infuse this geographical definition of resident, you're going to probably find the origins of this branch of the plan. Okay. Now, who was trying to say something there a minute ago? So the reason it's rebuttable is not because of their geographical qualifiers. It's because you, and the real meaning of the word is where you receive your rights and who you owe your duties to, and you don't want to owe them to the federal government. You want to owe them to God the way that you were supposed to have that obligation, where they threw this sheet of deceit over you the minute your big toe came out of mama's birth canal. Now,
Roger?
yes, yes. Is that Merca?
Yep, I'm on speaker. My battery's low, so I don't have my headphones on. I did a screenshot for Michael regarding what the state had on the revenue site, and it's clear that they are following federal regulations. So that's one clue that could help him with what he's going to type up and fight with the state, because they're presuming he's a federal citizen. So there's a lot of
Well,
clues here that
they don't have the
yeah,
right
go
to
ahead.
presume that. He's notified them that he's not. They're just overriding that because they're
Right,
tyrants and they're
right,
trying to threaten him. Go ahead.
right, exactly. But it's clear on the site who they're imposing this on, and this is his way of finding it. Is that it shows that they're following federal publication, U.S. tax guide, right? So you're going through all these screenshots that I put on here, and it says domicile residency for individuals. That's what's confusing. They're using all the wrong words. And the state usually does that. State level, state of, the ones under United States, state of California, state of, Texas. They're using, sometimes the words that the state uses is completely wrong. And even though they write it lowercase or uppercase, they're using it wrong. And people are like, when they see that, they think that that's what they mean is the correct word or the definition, but it's not. I've been reviewing that for a while, maybe 2 years now. Insurances and everything, they're all mixed up because they're not understanding the correct or using the right legal word for the definition and for their descriptions. So if I looked at the state of Minnesota, and it shows that they're following federal regulations. They're telling you, okay, if you're doing one of these things, you are domiciled. It's up to us to defend ourselves. It's not up to them to explain it to you. You're not going to ask the agent or the agency or company to explain it to you. Why does it say this? You do understand what a North American national is. It's all in the words that they're using. But it's United States. The United States corporation has the correct definitions, but the state of doesn't. They'll use whatever they have to deceive you.
Yeah, this term residency is very nebulous. You have to really search to get back to the original definition and how they're using it. The people at the state taxing guide don't know that. They're going to go by what it says on the statutes. this is one of those cases you're going to have to prevail. I'm really looking forward to seeing what Mark has hammered up on this memo, this memorandum of law that he's been working on for a while, that would be, according to him, good to use in these types of situations. So,
Roger. Go ahead, Roger. Hello? Can you hear me, Roger?
like I said, it's the most important word I've found in the whole New World Order scheme over all these years. Is this one right here? It ties right back in. I'll give you an example, America. And of course, it's
Yeah.
reverting back to the 14th Amendment. If you meet this prong of the test, born or naturalized in the United States, and then meet the other prong of the test, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, if you meet those two prongs, you are, it says, a citizen of the United States in a state wherein they reside. Now, they don't use the word resident there. They've hidden it, again, in the terminology. Okay? Now, years ago, when Daryl used to hang around here and Ralph Winterroot was still alive over on 2 Hours a Sunday night on RBN, and I remember Ralph Winterroot, when he was talking to our friend Chuck Ward, who is another one of these guys we don't see too often, friend of Mark's, personal friends. He was the one that you told Mark for years about me, and Mark never looked into it until he stumbled into us that day because of his association with Ralph Winterrout. So Ralph Winterrout would say, go back to Chuck and said, I did, because he had Westlaw, Nexus, Lexus, one of them, and he said, I did a whole search on Title 26 and the word national isn't in there. Okay, it's not. So Ralph made his decision that it couldn't be a national because the word national wasn't in there. Ralph didn't know how our enemies think to realize they just changed the label and put it in that jurisdictional statement. But so one day he was also saying the word resident doesn't have anything to do. And I remember Daryl said he called him up and he said, read the 14th Amendment. And he got to the and the state wherein they, and there's just a long silence because he realized how they'd inverted that and tricked him with it. Okay. So these are the tools of our enemies. This is how they work. Fortunate for us, we're aware of it and can instruct people on not only A, what they're doing, but B, how to understand it, and C, how to come back and rub their damn nose in it, like filing an affidavit with the Secretary of State for a
Roger.
passport. All right, hold on. And so all those things together are the much misunderstood and misinterpreted definition of the word resident. It has to do with what laws you're under. Yes, Merca.
It's in our affidavit. We already removed that. We're not resident
Well,
to the resident.
I
Just
understand
like
that. I,
and
Merca.
then in the 14th Amendment, where they tell you that if you're resigning, you
Roger.
have to understand
You
that.
know, hold on, Dave. 53 of the percent of the people in the United States in this survey is done last year cannot read above the third or the sixth grade level. 21% of the people surveyed were 100% illiterate. They could not read, they could not write. That's the population we're dealing with, unfortunately. What has happened,
Federal
America, is DEI
yeah,
has allowed some of these people to get into key positions. That's the problem. One of them.
yeah. But if the state that we're supposed to be under,
I know,
it's not as
I know.
the sovereign state. So if they're following federal regulation, that should give you a clue that it's not. They're not following the
And
sovereign.
those don't apply to you. And I think that Michael is going to get some sort of recognition back from the IRS on that, and is going to be able to go over and we can play their game too and shove this up the old Minnesotans sphincter muscle. So we'll hopefully that day will come sooner than later. But it's just a bluff. It's just a friggin' bluff. That's all they're doing with him. They're just a little more adamant about it. There could be other legitimate mistakes, like Jack using the right form but filling out incorrectly, and all these things that can mess up that monkey wrench. Okay, but I believe we'll get them all straight again. Never in all these years have we had one of those cases of blowback of people being taken to court, people being charged, people having lien, levy, garnishment, and seizures. None of those things have happened to our people that I'm aware of. Now, Dave was sitting there. Okay, Marco, what? Marco, if you got something to finish up, I'm going to go to Dave, okay?
Gary gave a good example of what we need to be reviewing, and it was a good example of residence and residency.
Okay, thank you. Dave.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Roger. We got quite a conundrum over here, but I did want to say I've had what you've just been talking about, the DEI stuff. And really, I think the modern times it started with Barney Frank, was that first real queer that I remember, as a young man.
He was running
but really it started with, I guess, J. Edgar Hoover, right?
He was a representative, and he was running. His roommate was a little faggot, and they were running a faggot ring out of his house. Barney Frank.
Right in Washington, D.C. Yeah, in Washington, D.C.
Imagine that.
And he said, if you take me down, I'll take you down with me. And they let him go. Anyway, we got a conundrum here. We got my brother here from Texas. He's homeless. He has no identity. He's got nothing. He's got a picture of his expired Texas driver license on his phone. That's the only ID he owns. What do we do? How do we get him? He wants to be a national.
Well,
I know we got to get him a state ID in order for that to happen.
First thing I do.
What do we do?
First thing I do is he could write out an affidavit with people like you, his brother, and the other family members. Yes, this is who this is. Secondly, I would suggest that he go to the state vital statistics in the state where he was born and order 3 original certified copies of his birth certificate. Then you're gonna have.
But you got to have ID to do that.
You don't. Not to my knowledge. No,
you don't?
Not to my knowledge. It's a public document. It's just they've got copies of it. But you can order it from the vital statistics. If there is any question about that, you can go back and do this family affidavit first. How many family members that could swear to who he is are alive?
Well, really, here in Michigan, only my family, my wife and I, and our 2 children and our grandsons.
That's more than enough. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can do that. You can. I don't believe you're going to run into any obstacles if they're not going to ask for ID. And then he would have his birth certificate. You could take those 2 things to Michigan because he doesn't have a driver's license, right? You just got a picture of an expired one.
Right.
You could go in and ask for state ID. Now he'd have a state ID. You've got his ID, and you'd have the birth certificate, and you go apply for a passport and put the affidavit in there. Nothing to it.
All right.
Yep. Now, Paul's got something to add. Yeah, Paul.
I've got a question, then I've got a comment. It's kind of a fill in the blanks. Question: where was he born? What state was he born? Quick answer.
Michigan.
Okay, good. All right. As far as getting a birth certificate, I needed a copy of mine. Mine came from Minnesota. I couldn't go to Minnesota to actually get it. So what I did was my daughter got the application for a birth certificate, and she showed up at the office with her ID, and she just put down on the application who she was, that she filled out the application, and what her relationship to me was. Next thing I know, I'm getting a birth certificate in the mail.
Yeah.
It's not difficult.
All I remember is writing to Florida's vital statistics. They charged me $20 for 3 of them. You're probably going to get charged for them. and but
Right.
they send them right back in return mail, and no big deal.
Yeah, but the birth certificate is not a picture identification.
no.
If anybody
Well,
could
how could it?
contact the Office of Vital Statistics and get a birth certificate for anybody, and then they could
Okay.
take that and use that to get ID.
Probably could.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
remember
it's
asking for additional ID, Dave. They may. This was, God, a long time ago for me, 20 plus years.
yeah, the rules have changed.
Okay.
Well, I remember going to Detroit. My wife and I were born in the same Wayne County, and we had to go down to, some Detroit building in downtown Detroit, and we got them for us and our children, and I could have swore we had to show them our IDs, but that maybe we didn't. I don't. It's been quite some time now.
If they ask you,
So,
show them. That's why you have that affidavit of family recognition. Get that done
yeah,
first.
right,
You
right.
may,
Okay.
you may could take that to the state and get a state ID off of it. I'm not sure what their requirements are. Certainly, if you had a birth certificate and that, it would buttress it, but they may let you in on just that affidavit. Have to do some calling around and
Okay.
asking, but I don't think it's going to be as
Yeah.
difficult as you think it might be.
Well, we tried to call we don't have a DMV. We got a Secretary of State here to get all our IDs and auto stuff
She's
done,
a bitch,
and we
too.
called and they said all of our agents are busy helping other people. Call back later. Click.
Yeah, she's
And you call back later, right away, and 20, 30 times, and they keep giving you the same message and hanging up on you.
She's a Democratic operative bitch, too. Boy, you got
Oh,
you're
dude.
loaded with them in Michigan. Loaded with them.
Aren't we ever?
Ugh.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
Women will rule
Pretty
over
sick.
you, and children will be your oppressors, Dave.
Oh, I know. I hate that.
I know.
Well, thank you for the info.
Oh, you're
I
very
appreciate it.
Okay, buddy. Go let
All
us
right.
know how that turns out, would you? Say hello to your
I
brother.
will.
And who
I
who
will.
else
Thank
was
you.
trying to say something?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Good morning. Afternoon, however.
Morning, good afternoon to you. Yeah, Roger, this is Jeff from Pennsylvania.
Oh,
I
Jeff,
call in.
yeah, we talked to you. I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I let you go yesterday. You wanted to go eat, so it's the very end of the show. But I just wanted to get a few minutes to ask a few questions and get a little rundown of my situation here. I have sent 2 affidavits, okay, since June. The first one was an attachment to my passport application.
Okay.
Okay, that was back in June. It was mailed on the 11th, and then the second one was October. Okay, and that was a standalone affidavit without any kind of passports or anything else.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm getting ready to start looking in to do my notices, and I wanted to know which one would you recommend
Doesn't
me
matter.
sending along
Well,
my download?
were they not the same one?
The date's
Affidavit?
different.
Well, I mean, that's negligible. Just well, if that's the case, take the newest, latest dated one, because technically, I guess that would supersede the other one. Although I think they probably both said basically the same thing, so therefore it should be any difference would be negligible, if any, and start working on that one. And yeah,
Now, the
listen,
passport office and the Secretary of State, they both see them go across their desk, right?
I'm gonna put a Bunsen burner under your ass and say, get to doing that. You've procrastinated a bit. That's where we've seen people run into problems when they haven't done the local notice. They get a traffic ticket or something else, and then what happens is the hill you're gonna have to climb is a lot steeper because you didn't do all the appropriate stuff. If you've already sent them a notice, you can just refer to the fact that you've sent them on, make them shame them into it. So it just puts you a little bit ahead in certain circumstances, not necessarily totally. Okay, Jeff. Now, what questions do you have about the local notice?
No, it was just what affidavit was recommended.
Oh,
Which
okay.
date
Well, just
affidavit,
the
the one
newest
that
one.
attached to the passport.
I doubt if there'd be any difference in either one of them, but I guess just the newest one.
Okay, and there's another question is, you recommend noticing the U.S. Attorney General, Bondi, and them, or just
Well,
worry
I
about the
don't. We've
states?
never put that into the sequence, but it wouldn't be a bad idea. I don't know with Miss Bondi, and so many obligations as she has in appearances on Fox. I don't know if she'd have time or her delegate to read it, but it couldn't hurt. Couldn't,
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have to worry about interfacing with them anyway, really.
Hey, here, Jeff, is the rule of thumb. I don't believe that these people up there in D.C. I don't believe they can see enough of these things. So you approach things like that accordingly. Okay.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I got about 15, 16 recipients on my little list I made up for these notices. So yeah,
Okay.
they're very primitive.
All right. Now, if you're going to do all those certified, that's going to cost you. How much is certified? They tell us $12 or something now.
Somewhere, almost $200 almost. I think at the end of it all.
Yeah. Why don't you look into Merca? Can't they do this cheaper with a firm book? I think we'll get some people here maybe that know about this, but there's a book at the post office called the Firm. I think that's FIRM book. Have you heard us talk about this, Jeff? I never.
I have heard you bring up a firm book.
Well, I think that you could take all those letters and put them in the Firm book and send them under. I think it's cheaper for you, and it's a little bit of a even more recognizable proof that it was done. So you may want to consider that and look into it. Anybody got any information on this Firm book? Is it cheaper to do it that way also?
Roger.
Okay, yeah. There's Julie. She's always got something.
Yeah,
Can you help us?
Those are expensive now. They're expensive. They don't give them out for free anymore. A lot of them don't even have them in the post offices anymore. You got to order them online.
I'll be darned. So much for that, Jeff. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Comment.
It's Carl in Utah. So
Okay, Carl.
if you go, it is hard to get, but you can download just the copy of it from the website, from their website, usps.com. And it's a form, I'm just looking it up, but it costs you $3 to execute the form, and you can do up to 49 recipients on it. And I would make sure your Secretary of State, you do the actual certified mail, but everybody else, you can do it this way. And when they stamp it, and they don't really know how, so it takes a little higher educated employee to do it, but they'll stamp it, they write down how many, they confirm that you sent X amount of recipients, and they are supposed to verify the addresses to make sure the address written on the form and the address on your envelopes are the same, but they typically don't know to do that. And then they're supposed to sign it as received. And as you know, received is said is accepted and received. Give me a second. I'm going to look this up. I'll tell you the phone number.
It's another one of these new things that I've never heard of, and they're implementing at the post office. Jeff, this sounds like what you'd probably be interested in, and read us what it is, if you would.
It's a PS-3877. And when you open that up, it's got 4 pages, 2 of which are just how-to, and then the third page is the actual form, and that's the only one you got to take in. The rest are pretty much garbage. And that will give you a confirmation of sending in the notices, and you can always use it. You can attach it to anything you wanted to put in the county records, however you want to do what you want to do after that.
Cool. That's a PS, which would be Postal Service, I guess. 3877? 3877. Yep. Okay, kids. Well, there's a total new one that came
if he's
up.
got
Thank you.
15,
yeah.
If he's got 15, print off 2 copies of page number 3, and he has to put the addresses in there, and that's all he does on that form until he takes it into the mail with his mailings. He has to pay for the stamps, so if you're 1 page, it's a regular stamp, and then it's, like I said, $3 to execute up to
Wow, Carl.
49, I think is the number.
We don't usually get totally new information around here, so thank you very much. I don't think any of us have heard of
Thanks
this.
for your research. Hey,
Roger, this is Matt. May I?
Yeah, hey Matt, you got something to add here? Have you used this?
Yeah. I used to use a lot. And obviously the reason we worry about certified or registered or whatever we're going to do is if we ever have to prove in court that we sent it or prove in some way that we sent it. So I did that for a few years, and I just want everyone to know you have to send, they'll only allow you to send a minimum of 3 pieces of mail at the same time. You can't just send one thing. So you have to send 3. So even if you send one to yourself, if you don't have anyone else to send to, you have to send 3 at a time. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, good. Thank you, Matt. Otherwise, you found it to be very reliable. They recognize it, no problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, the post office I used to use, there was one gal that knew exactly how to do it. And then if I come in and she wasn't there, you get some other clerk or whatever mail person, and they wouldn't know, but they could see from the previous ones where to stamp it and where to sign and stamp it. So,
okay.
It's easy.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate your input. Glad to know you're out there. PS 3877, new to us here as a way to dealing with notices. So, Jeff, you've helped us pioneer something here. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And see, I tell you,
Hey,
the
Raj.
questions are important, and it's little things like this. Jeff comes on, asks a question, we explore it, bam, and we get an answer on something totally new that can help everybody and save you a few shekels. Yes, Dave.
Yeah, here's some interesting tidbit. We, our little town here has a postal service. It's not a post office, and we have a P.O. box there, and it's not accessible after hours. And they sent us a renewal, and it was like $109, I think, for a year. And we went to the next town. We went to the next town over, and they have a post office. Their boxes are accessible 24/7, and it's the exact same size box for a year, $67.
You know how I label this? Private equity.
Yeah.
They say it's infiltrated everything. Maybe it's down to these postal services that contract with the post office. Folks, private equity is going to be a big deal. It already is, and most of you, except for hearers, talk about it here, don't know much about it. It's something you ought to be tuned up on a little bit. They're just going in and taking all this equity and just bulldozing it out and leaving the company with a shell and huge debts that will bankrupt them. That's what's going on. So anyway, looks like we're towards the end of the program here. A couple of minutes. So somebody have something they were just dying to get in and didn't have a chance. The conversation was so brisk you couldn't even get your foot into it. Any of those? Well, shoot, I was hoping there's one of them. Okay.
Right.
Yes, sir, Dave. You want to continue? Go ahead.
Yeah, we just my wife and I just met with our township supervisor, and about these data collection centers.
Oh, good. Yes.
And
good.
and well, he got called out. He came in the room with the deputy clerk, and our clerk, who we had for decades, she died suddenly, probably jabbed, but she acted like she hated the government. She was an older gal. And then there was a lady working in the office, and I don't know what her job was, and they appointed her to be the clerk till the next election. And then she ran, she won, and her husband is the deputy clerk. And, you know, that they don't even live in our township. It's kind of weird. Anyway, the supervisor got called out of the, you know, called in for somebody. And so we're talking to this deputy clerk, and I'm asking him all these questions about, you know, data centers and Agenda 21 and smart meters and, you know, all kinds of stuff. And he knew nothing. He said he didn't know nothing about none of it. And, you know, I asked him about the Communist Manifesto. He'd never heard of it. And, you know, none of, and he said, none of this stuff affects me that you're telling me. And I'm like, wow, you have children. I know you have children because your wife wanted me to hire him to put a fence in at my house, you know, young teenage boys. So I know you got children. And you say that none of the stuff I mentioned doesn't affect you, but guess what? It's going to affect your children at some point. And he said it doesn't matter. Wow. So anyway, I'll let the whistler come in.
That's that. Unfortunately, that's a good description of the situation we're in. I'm sorry to say.
Scary, Roger.
Yep. Makes you want to move outside the country, Dave. So anyway, there's
ignorance is bliss.
It is. That's unfortunately true too, Samuel. And the truth, you could go to use the opposite, the dialectic. The truth is a heavy burden. There's a dialectic of that for you. So we got heavy burdens, folks. We got crosses to bear and people that we have a duty to contact and try and put this information in front of them to see if they too would like to be free of this demon. So otherwise than that, that's what we hang our hat on here. I'm going to be shooting out of the apartment this afternoon. Go ahead, Paul, sorry.
I know I'm going straight to hell. Because for a fleeting moment during the COVID thing and when it was coming out how deadly the jabs were and all that, I actually entertained the thought, well, biggest problem, the biggest inhibition to our freedom is the stupid people that continue to play along. And it's exactly those people that are playing along that are going to line up for the jab. And a few years, we won't have to deal with them anymore.
Take them out of the pool, self-executed. So, yeah, that's it. We'll be back tomorrow to see what happens between now and then, and maybe we'll have a new person around here. Who knows? We will see you, if not tomorrow, though, soon. So, thanks for spending time with us. Love you. Bye.
Ciao.
Yeah. Okay.
Roger.
Larry.
Yeah, getting back to the 14th Amendment, it says there's two conjunctions of the word and. It says the second one obviously talks about and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, and then it goes on to say are citizens of the United States, and then here comes the second conjunction, and of the state wherein they reside. Can you also read this as are citizens of the United States and citizens of the state wherein they reside? Is that implied?
No, I don't think it is. No, because a state citizen would be just the opposite. They would be under the laws of the state. So I would think...
Depends on what state you're talking about.
Well, the state of confusion. I think you're reading too much into it.
Exactly. State of delirium, state of ignorance, state of delusion, state of confusion. What state?
Well, the underpinning thing that is more defining than what the words say, Larry, is that everything's got to be voluntary. So the first one's got to be voluntary because only you can put